Hi, and welcome everyone to my studio here, sending live from a sunny Malmö down in the south of Sweden. So I'm Johanna Lindvert-Lanér. I'm head of the HR team here at Eletive, or I would like to call us the people experience team, because that is what we find our purpose to be. So today I'll guide you through a session about how we in HR can cultivate self-leadership within our organizations. And so I will start with this session, and then afterwards we will do a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to add them in the Q&A, and hopefully we will have time for that at the end of the session. All right. I bet that you, just as I, feel that the HR role has really been evolving during these last years. The HR function have moved from being a function seen as responsible for policies and processes to now really taking part of the organization's strategy, taking a place into the management team, but also being an enabler of culture and growth. And I want to explore today how we as HR leaders can cultivate this self-leadership within our organization, because that is really important in these times of changes that we experience. So the HR role is changing, but I believe that that's also because of that the workplace is changing so much. It was about 5 years ago when COVID hit us, and from not even had the slightest thought that we would be working full remote. That was the reality from a day to another. And the following after that, we are now, many of us working in hybrid teams, and also some are now even actually asking their employees to come back fully to the office again. We have also all the technique development and AI coming in. And this means that we have to learn a lot new software, platforms, apps, and ways of working. And this requires quite a lot from our organizations. And it requires quite a lot in terms of engagement within your organization. And as traditional engagement strategies put a lot of the responsibility on HR and managers to measure, to lead it, to drive it, it's really shown now that to be able to handle all of these changes that is coming up, that all of the organization needs to be part of driving engagement. And that is where self-leadership comes in. So self-leadership, there is, just like with engagement, there is no unified universal definition, but we here internally at Eletive, we usually use this one, that self-leadership is about individuals that take ownership of their own development, motivation, and performance. So that means that a self-led employee, they doesn't wait for instructions, they seek the opportunities, they don't depend solely on a manager for feedback, they ask for it. We have also identified that there are 3 core elements of self-leadership. First one is self-awareness, that employees with high sense of self-leadership, they reflect and they know themselves. They understand the strength and what motivates them and which are the areas for growth and development. And they know how they work best, and they can also reflect on what energizes or what drains them, and they are more open to feedback and change. And once you are aware of your areas of development and where you want to grow, you will look for feedback and development opportunities. You want to learn continuously. So these employees with high self-leadership, they have a learning mindset. And it's common that it grows in a social context because they want to be part of groups and they want to learn from peers. And it's also important with the proactive mindset. A self-led employee, as I said, they don't sit and wait. They take initiatives instead of waiting for directions. And they also take responsibility to call out if they see that anything is needed. And they're also actively driving the organization forward by coming up with ideas, sharing feedback, and trying new things that could benefit the organization. And the presence of self-leadership in organizations can really make a difference. Organizations that has no or low self-leadership will experience a low engagement. And we know that low engagement, that means that people would tend to sit and wait for instructions. They don't contribute. They don't see the purpose of being part of the organization. They are, and as they, very little try to solve problems or initiate things, this puts a lot of responsibility on managers. It's quite common that the leading philosophy that ends up in this organization is that they are micromanaged by managers, which we know is neither expect or not good fun for the employee, but it's a very work heavy way of working for the manager. Compare this to organization where the self-leadership is high. People don't wait for instructions, they try things out. They know themselves and their strength. They don't want to develop themselves, but also the organization. And that means that, just bringing all these ideas and want to develop, that will lead to higher productivity and efficiency. That will be a positive work environment. And all of that also affects the engagement for the employees. And we know that high engaged employees, they are a lot less absent than people with low engagement. And it's also that the turnover is a lot less, because if you really feel that you are engaged at your workplace, you don't see a need to move to another workplace. But self-leadership doesn't just grow or exist just because you say so when you want that to happen in your organization. Of course, there needs to be things in your organization that supports this. You have to have like a culture, leadership, psychological safety. But there are also structures and processes that can support this. And I want to give you some tips that I have both on my own that we have tried out here internally at Eletive, but also that I've heard of that I think can support this. So the first one, as I said, that employees with, it's important to have a strong self-awareness, and you can really support building self-awareness on your employees. Because employees with strong self-awareness, they know how they work the best, they know their strengths and needs, and they are more open to feedback and change. So examples that you could do, you could already during onboarding start this. You could introduce self-assessment tools, or you could also ensure that there are regular check-ins between the manager and employee to constantly reflect on how the onboarding is going. Another thing is to implement 360 feedback to help individuals build a richer self-understanding. By receiving feedback from managers, direct reports, and peers, that can increase your self-awareness and help you understand what areas that you need to improve. Other small things that you could do is to encourage reflections in one-on-ones. Why don't you add that to the one-on-one agenda every now and then, and let the employee answer to what's one of your strengths that you have used this week. Second one is foster a learning culture. You can never invest too much in learning and development. And for your employees to feel that they develop their strength and development areas, you need to make it concrete and you need to make it happen. I find it that it's HR's job to make learning accessible and celebrated. So examples on what you can do. I believe provide access to a learning budget or learning platforms where the employee themselves can choose different courses or conferences to visit. You can also encourage peer learning. And I must say that it might be underestimated how effective peer learning can be. But it's both with the context that you can learn together with a colleague that really will make you discuss your learning during your learning period. But it's also, you could also introduce learning labs or lunch and learns or brown bag lunches that we do here at Eletive. And that means that whenever someone has been taking a course, they are expected to share the learnings and the knowledge that they gained with other colleagues. And that is a really good way to ensure that you really learned what you've learned, so to say. Another thing that we have implemented here at Eletive is that now that we have introduced a learning time budget. We saw when we surveyed learning and development here that one of the obstacles that our employees felt was that they didn't have the time for learning. So we have now introduced that you have a 4-hour learning time budget per month. It might seem a little, but I think we can all, when we reflect, how much do we actually give ourselves the time? So just, I think, allowing learning to take time is one step to take. Sorry. I was told that I needed to, a very clear restriction that I wasn't able to have a glass, so I brought my daughter's bottle of water, just so you know. Going on to the third one, encourage employees to set their own development goals. To make learning happen, there needs to be a development goal. There is a huge difference on your motivation, whether someone tells you what you need to learn, compared to if you feel that you yourself have the autonomy to decide what, why, and how. And the reason for this is because when you define yourself, your learnings, and the path that you want to go more forward to, the motivation really increases because it's about ownership and that you feel that it's relevant for you. So a practical tips here is to let employees define their own development goals and career paths. A really good way to do this is to let them define their own development plan. You could create, a structure and template for this. And we have chosen it to have a so-called individual development plan, an IDP, where it's easy for both the manager and the coworker to, view the plan and to continuously follow up on the plan. As I said before, micromanagement is quite common to be an organization where it's low self-leadership. And micromanagement is the opposite leadership style that you needed for self-leadership. What managers need to do to enable self-leadership is to be able to coach, not to be controllers. So a tips here is to train your managers to be coaches, not controllers. Equip them with coaching skills so they can guide rather than dictate. And of course, you can introduce a coach the coach program. You can introduce toolkits for managers so they can use during one-on-ones or during other parts of the everyday work. You could also create internal communities for managers where they can share their successes and failures and learn from each other and also coach each other. Another tip is to set clear goals and expectations, but let the employees decide how. Because in order for the employee to use the proactive mindset to take the action and to do the how, you need to know where the organization is heading. So for employees to feel engaged and motivated to contribute, there is a need to understand the purpose and the vision and the goal. So they need to feel that they understand how they can contribute to the whole picture. So a tips here is to, before even thinking about the how, you need to ensure that they know what and where are we going. So ensure that everyone knows the vision, the purpose, and your organization's goals. And this can easily be measured using a pulse survey. And some platforms I know even offer you possibility to ask deep dive questions on certain topics. So you can, if you want, dive deeper into this and ask your organization if they understand the vision, goal, etc. And when you know that the understanding is in place, then you can continue with the how. And use a goal-setting framework. One of my favorites that has finally fallen into place is the OKR model that we have been using here at Eletive for 3 years now. OKRs is short for objectives and key results. And that is a goal-setting framework that we have. We use it in this way that the management team set yearly company objectives. And then we break it down so it's up to each department to do quarterly OKRs. So every department sit down in every quarter to first in the beginning of the quarter define what OKRs should we work on during this quarter. And they should all be connected to the overall company objectives. But as the objective is decided by the team, then it's the team who decide the how and what should we do. And it has been really powerful. And we can really see as we do ongoing evaluations and that we follow up every quarter, that this is a goal setting framework that really makes a difference on making the employees feel that they are part of the how, that everything should be executed within the company. Continuous feedback and continuous feedback culture fosters self-awareness. And I bet we're all could agree on that employees shouldn't have to wait a year for their performance review to get feedback on how they're doing. Manager and coworker feedback should be ongoing in both directions, preferably asked by the employee whenever needed, of course. So ensure that there are regular one-on-ones taking place. And here I believe HR can provide with good templates for what to discuss during the one-on-ones. And you can also train your managers on how to hold effective one-on-ones. But feedback isn't all about manager to employee. It's also about all organization giving and receiving feedback. And from my current experience with the usage of pulse survey, I know how powerful it can be to ensure you build a culture of continuous feedback. So some examples here. What I've seen, having pulse surveys with the possibility to comment is one of the best communication tools I know, because it allows for all employees to share their voice, and it also opens up for anonymous dialogues between employee and manager and the management team. Other kinds of continuous feedback that you could use a pulse survey is to also discuss the team's feedback culture within the team. It's usually quite common that feedback is one of the questions in the engagement survey. So then the team can sit down and discuss how is feedback really working within our team, and decide on actions that you and the team can take to be better at feedback if you see that there's a driver that you need to work on. Other things that I think can support continuous feedback, I bet many of you already use Slack or Teams channels. Here internally, we have different Slack channels where it's really supporting and for feedbacking. One, a very popular one that's much appreciated, is that we have a kudos channel. So whenever someone has, they see a colleague do something, or they hear from a customer that a colleague has done something good, we share it in the kudos channel, because it's a way of supporting each other and sharing each other's good behaviors and activities going on within the organization. It's also important to promote a collaborative culture, because self-leadership doesn't just come in a solo or in isolation. So I think what we can do is to encourage cross-functional projects and open a dialogue that foster the knowledge sharing between employees and departments. So, of course, HR can't affect all work projects and tasks between departments, but we can do a lot to make people meet each other across the teams. I see is as our purpose as well to encourage different social activities or team building activities whenever there's time for kickoffs or conferences. So helping people to meet people from other teams. And also what we try to do the collaborative culture here at Eletive is also how we actually work with the engagement result internally. So every quarter, we want every team to sit down and review their engagement result to actually define, what are our strengths that we should continue do, and do we have any drivers that we want to increase, or we want to, ensure that we do something about it, and let the team decide on what we can do together to ensure that this is increasing. So that was the 7 key strategies, but I also want to just share some examples of how we at Eletive integrate self-leadership into our engagement strategy. And one of the main parts that I've seen as I stepped into Eletive, but also what I've seen, because I actually got in contact with Eletive very first time as a potential customer, and when I saw the product, and the feature that the employee has their own engagement report is what I think is so powerful. Because I think this shift that the employee can log in and they can view their engagement result, and it means that they really understand their part and their ownership of engagement as well. Because I've experienced pulse surveys before, earlier on, where it was more that it felt that the employees they replied to the survey, but it felt that they thought that it was the management and HR's responsibility to take action on the engagement. But I think that showing the employee their results, it gives them the understanding that we're all part of developing and contributing to the engagement to our organizations. I also want to point out that it's only accessible, the report is only accessible for the employee, and neither the manager or me as HR and super admin the system, I don't have any access to individuals' reports. Another thing that we have worked on is a function that's built into the platform, which gives the employees, it can give them a guidance within the tool on the different drivers and the different questions, and can give them, if they see that, I might be low on relationship with colleagues, then there are advices in the platform to guide to guide the employees, so to say, to take action on, to see if they themselves can do things that will improve their results. And also, we have done a change when it comes to removing yearly performance goals in the yearly performance review, to instead do ongoing development goals, and that everyone owns their own development plan. And they create this individual development plan on both a long term, and they break it down to short term. And the short term is also, it needs to be they need to also write down what kind of activities will you do the next quarter that will help you to reach your development goal. All right, so I've been talking a lot now, and I've been giving you a lot of different tips. And yes, there is a lot that HR can do in many areas to support self-leadership, but I surely want to point out that it isn't HR's roles to manage every aspect of self-leadership and engagement, but to enable a culture where employees drive their own success. Because I believe when employees practice self-leadership, they take ownership of their performance, and they take ownership of their development and their motivation, as we said. So, and when they take the ownership of their work and development, they will experience a higher job satisfaction and better performance and higher engagement. And this is really a shift that we and many of our customers see, that the dependency on HR and managers, taking responsibility with, top down. We now see the shift that it's all levels of an organizations that are working together and taking responsibility for the engagement within the organization. And I believe that having that mindset is so powerful. It really starts with seeing your employees, supporting them, and having trust in them. So some final key takeaways, what I believe that HR can do to support the self-leadership. Shift from HR or manager-driven engagement to employee-driven engagement. Give the leaders tools to coach and not to control employees. I also believe support the self-awareness with reflection tools and continuously feedback. And let employees drive their own learning and career development. And help your employees to take responsibility for their engagement. Thank you so much for listening. Before I have a look at your questions in the Q&A, I just want to let you know that if you want to learn more about the Eletive product and how it works, you can always book a demo with any of my colleagues. So log in via the QR code here or pop into our webpage. And I would also, of course, love to connect with you on LinkedIn. So just send me a connection there as well. So thank you so much for taking your time and listening to my session. Let's switch over to the Q&A. Thank you so much, everyone.
No questions.
No questions. All right. Well, then what I can tell you is that please connect with me at LinkedIn if you want to dig deeper into this. I would love to discuss this matter further with you. All the best. Take care.